welcome back. It's Anna.
And Rebecca.
That's right. And so last time we saw you, we talked about the worker bees and all of the different ways that each of their roles is essential to the hive, no matter how small or big their job is.
Today we're going to get a little bit more into the work that we do as beekeepers, as CombCutters, and also ways that we can find healing through working with bees. So you've already seen a little bit of what it takes to maintain a hive and to do some of the basic work of being a beekeeper, but we wanted to tell you a little bit more about what we as CombCutters do to support pollinator health and create thriving, healthy ecosystems, and how we see beekeeping as a tool for change and how we try to use beekeeping as a tool for change.
Absolutely. Hey, Rebecca.
Hey.
So, yes, we've already maintained the hives together, and maybe we could start by talking a little bit about where these bees are coming from, right? Because we are rescuing them, essentially.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly right. So a lot of beekeepers buy their bees. That's certainly an option. There's many ways to be a beekeeper, and no one way is right or wrong, right? So you can buy your bees from a bee store or from another beekeeper, but where we get our bees from are actually usually the inside of walls or attics or roofs or some unwanted location on somebody's property. So all of our bees are actually wild honeybees that have been thriving on their own here in South Florida, but unfortunately chose to build their hives in a place where people don't want them. So,
That's right. And usually what that entails is bringing in a fumigation team and killing off the bees, which, as we already talked about, is probably not the best choice if we're thinking about things in a more sustainable kind of way and in a way which supports our way of living as far as like the things that we want to eat and how we want to live and thrive as humans.
Yeah, so instead of people calling in an exterminator to exterminate those bees that are in an unwanted location, they can call us or other beekeepers like us who do what we call whole hive live bee removals or bee rescues.
That's right.
And so we'll go in and actually basically have to open up the wall. We cut open the wall with power tools and everything, or the ceiling or wherever the hive is, and we fully expose the hive, and then we actually physically remove the hive piece by piece, taking all the eggs and larvae and pupa that you saw earlier out of the wall and transferring them into our own hive boxes, and then we collect as many bees as we physically can and the queen, and then we relocate the whole entire hive to one of our bee yards, so that way the bees can continue to live and thrive and do their thing, but do it a little bit farther away from where people are living.
Yes, and when we talk about bee yards, we're not only talking about our own backyards, but we're also talking about urban farms in the middle of Little Haiti, Liberty City, North Miami, Miami Gardens even. So places where you normally wouldn't think that you would find a thriving farm with vegetables and fruits that you can eat and that are obviously grown super locally. But here we are, at this beautiful location where we've been filming today. This is a great example of a place where it's more of a bee sanctuary than anything. Imagine how happy you would be if you went from a very noisy street to this vast space where there's plenty of wildflowers, banana trees, cerasee, growing wilds, and even like peppers when it's their season, tomatoes, and anything that you can think of that could grow within our climate. They're not only in a happier place, but they're helping sustain a farm that is growing multiple crops and not just monocrops, which can be not only just a little bit boring for them, but also detrimental to the soil itself, which is a big problem when we talk about the modern ways of agriculture.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So when we relocate wild bees to urban farms like this one, we are helping to pollinate those plants, which are in turn replenishing the soil instead of taking from the soil, and producing food that is local, accessible, affordable to people living in these neighborhoods. So it's pretty cool that our bees are the bees that we work with. Of course, we don't own them, they're not ours. We just get to work with them, get to really participate in bringing healthy food to eradicating all kinds of communities.
Yeah, eradicating food deserts even. When we talk about sustainability, we're in South Florida. We're pretty much at the front lines and have a lot of frontline communities here in South Florida that are not even right now, that are very susceptible to being in the middle of the food desert, to being in the middle of gentrification war, essentially, where people are getting pushed out of their homes. COVID-19 is happening, and we've seen what effects that has had on frontline communities as well. And so when we bring in these hives, we're very much thinking about how much more enriching it is, and what a wonderful thing it is that we're contributing to. So it's not just about the bees and the honey, which we all love the honey, but it's about a bigger picture. It's about it being a tool for change. So Rebecca, you're wearing one of my favorite shirts. Can you tell me a little bit about it?
The Liberty City Bee Girls shirt.
Yes.
Sure. Well, this was a program that we did a number of years back. So in addition to doing bee rescues, wild bee rescues, as we said, as CombCutters, we do a lot of education about and with bees, right? So the Liberty City Bee Girls was a program that we did a number of years ago, where we worked with elementary age girls from right in the community in Liberty City. We have a number of hives at a community farm in Liberty City, so it was just with girls that were right from the area. And we did a whole 6-week program with them, where each time we met, we taught them a little bit about bees. We got to open up beehives. They got to actually work with the bees, hold the bees themselves. And each time we taught them about bees, we were able to relate whatever we were teaching back to their lives. So we really believe that you can use bees to teach about anything. So we like teaching beekeeping. We like teaching about bees in general, but what we really love is using them to teach about other things, right? Like, so teach about math or engineering, but also, as we were talking about a little bit earlier, teaching about ways to communicate and build community and build confidence and things like that. So it was a really awesome program. It was like amazing to get to work with the kids and to get to watch them working with the bees and kind of working through fears, building confidence, everything like that. Yeah.
That's really interesting that you mentioned working through fears, because I think that bees are usually something that people go, I don't want them, I don't want to be near them, I don't want to, just give me the honey. But, as we talked about, bees are really just defensive animals, and they do a great service to us just as as the way that they walk through the world, really, or fly through the world, I should say. They just work within their ecosystems, and a part of that is like supporting other plants and their sustainability. So it's a great thing to be able to be mindful of those things, but also think of bees as not just like these critters that make honey, but also as just a beautiful part of the ecosystem. And when you get to work with bees, as we know very well, it's a way to really work through your anxieties, to work through fears, to really think about your breathing and those kinds of things. And as you and Monique were able to witness with the Bee Girls, it's a way to really build up confidence and to really see a change and a shift, even, from the first day to the last day.
And I think it brings a lot of hope too, because if you can imagine yourself going to open up a beehive for the first time, you probably feel really nervous, having a lot of anxiety because there's all these hundreds of thousands of stinging insects flying around you, right? But if you're able to calm your breathing down and move slowly and gain confidence and work through those anxieties, right? Like imagine what that would feel like at the end, that to know that you managed through that anxiety successfully, and then imagine that what that means. It means that you could also work through other anxieties, right? Like it can be an example of kind of like how possible it is to move through anxieties, to heal from trauma, to change the way we walk through the world, right?
Absolutely. That reminds me of my first time that Rebecca took me out to do some bee work, and there was a swarm out by Cersei, and I think it was up in a tree or somewhere sort of close but not too close, and at some point the branch dropped and all of the bees started moving around, but because they had been swarming, they're really just worried about just staying together and like figuring out where everybody is, and not worried about us at all, which means that we were in the very middle, the center of this like ball of bees, what I think most people would describe as a nightmare, but it was so centering and grounding and beautiful, and like just imagine all of that, those vibrations from all of them going zzz, and it was such a beautiful experience. I will never forget it. And I mean, I was already very much determined to become a beekeeper, was very grateful to find Rebecca and Monique and to be welcomed into CombCutters. But that right there was like, absolutely, I was hooked. In the ways that you're saying, like, this is such an experience, and it's such a privilege to be able to work with bees and with any animals, really, any creatures, but with bees in particular, because they are so healing, and there are so many aspects to them that are healing, that it's really great. It's really quite a privilege.
Yeah, and I like too how you said that it's a privilege not just to work with bees, but to work with any animals. So that reminds me that all of the lessons that we learn while working with bees, like how to be calm, move with intention, take deep breaths, really think before we act, well, those are the same lessons we should use when we're working with other animals and with other people, right?
Yes.
Like what if we all could really learn to take a lot of deep breaths and think before we act, right? So I think that working with bees really does can bring all of those things into our lives, right? And then bringing that into one person's life, right, affects all the people around them and can affect all the people around them, right? It can affect whole communities. So it's pretty amazing to think about.
Absolutely. Should we talk about other ways that the hives can be healing? I mean, we've talked about all of the different lessons that we've taken into our lives, into our personal lives, and in the ways that we move through the world, but I think also, like, honey being the most obvious one is very healing and great for allergies, and the fact that we work with hyper local hives is great. Whenever we're at markets, we ask people, where do you live, and then according to that, that's what we recommend for them, and people love that. Imagine being able to drink honey or eat honey from your own backyard, and to be able to heal yourself from things that are in your own backyard. But what are some other ways that we can use?
Yeah, so honeybees have so many different products inside the hive that are medicinal. So honey, as you said, really good for allergies, also antiviral, antibacterial.
Yes, use it on wounds.
It's antiseptic, anti all kinds of things. But then that propolis that we saw earlier, that really sticky brown stuff that comes from tree resin, it's really medicinal. You can take it internally to heal like gut issues. It's also antibacterial, all kinds of things like that. There is the pollen that the bees go out and collect, and they bring back to the hive. Obviously, they need that pollen. They make the bee bread out of it, and they need that to live. However, when it's the right season, we try very hard in CombCutters to not take too much from our bees or not take from them at the wrong time of year. But when it's the right season, the right time of year, and they're bringing in a whole lot of pollen, it's sometimes okay to take some of that pollen as they bring it in, and then you can use that medicinally as well. You can eat it, mix it with your food. It's really high in protein. The royal jelly.
Right.
We don't ever take the royal jelly because, well, as we talked about.
Yeah, it's pretty much something that they use for a very specific reason. And, you know, think about the size of a bee. It's such a small amount, not only that they're producing, but that they're, you know, providing for each of the larvae. So imagine how invasive it would be to extract that. You know, within that same breath, I can say that, you know, you find this stuff all over the place, and that's why it's very expensive. So now you know, but, you know, you can find it at Whole Foods, you can find it at farmers markets even, and yeah, it's an elixir of life, as people would say.
Yeah, so very healthy, but again, we don't really harvest it because we do try to do what's the healthiest for our bees, and it feels a little too invasive to take royal jelly.
Absolutely. What else can we talk about? Wax, beeswax?
Oh yeah, of course. You all saw all that comb that the bees build, which is made out of beeswax. And when we have extra comb for various reasons, we can melt that down and actually get a whole lot of beeswax out of that. Beeswax can be used for so many things. We make candles, which is fun, and candles can be used in ritual spaces and for kind of healing and transformational purposes. But besides that, beeswax is used medicinally quite a lot to put into like salves that you can use like on wound care or all kinds of different things. So
yeah, absolutely, and it's much healthier to burn a beeswax candle than it is to burn, you know, just your run-of-the-mill candle. I mean, when you put the candle out, you can smell the difference just off the top, and when you pick up the wax candle, it smells like honey, so you can't go wrong there.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of regular run-of-the-mill candles, I don't know if you all know this, but most of the wax that's used for candles is paraffin, which is a petroleum product, right? So that wax that's coming from all those candles is actually coming from like probably a different country, from underground. It's a non-renewable resource that's, you know, like all kinds of resources are used to make it and produce it, and it's the byproduct of all this other pollution that's made, right? So versus beeswax, which is coming from our backyards, from community farms, and we only take when there's extra, so it's pretty cool to work with.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then, one more medicinal product of the bees that it's a little controversial. Not everybody's going to be excited about it, but it is bee venom. So
yes. Yeah, just the other day my mom got stung and she's like, oh, but it's okay. I've been having some problems because she's got a little bit of arthritis in her hands and her bones are really achy sometimes. So she was very welcoming of that bee sting because, as you may or may not know, bee sting really helps with arthritis pain, really helps
with like a lot of joint issues,
yes,
tendons, ligaments, things like that. So there's like kind of an old wives' tale, or like whatever, that beekeepers never get arthritis because, you know, as a beekeeper you do get stung. But yeah, we choose to see those stings usually as medicine. That sting, that venom, when it goes into you, it kind of brings a rush of white blood cells to the spot where you get stung, and that just promotes really, really fast healing, right? And they say that sometimes it can rebuild collagen, which are kind of the building blocks of muscles and everything. So it's pretty amazing.
Bee sting therapy.
Yes, we don't recommend going out and getting stung unless you know you've been stung before and you're really ready to handle that. But if you do ever accidentally get stung, maybe you can think about what part of your body maybe needed that medicine.
Absolutely. One thing I do know is that beekeepers can be agents of change, not only in the ways that we deal with and handle the bees, and the ways that we choose to introduce bees to ecosystems, and the ways that we choose to support and bolster native pollinators too.
And support and bolster the communities of people living around us. So that's a little bit about the work that we do and how we see our work as a tool for change, for creating change in our own communities.
That's right. And so we're curious to know, what is it that your talents, your gifts, and all of the people that are around you, how do those things play into the change that you can create within your communities, your family, your organization, your city, and worldwide?
That's right. There's a million ways to make change in this world. What is your tool for change?